was experimenting a bit with just some ideas I've been working on. Nothing new, like stability, opening and closing, rotation, all that stuff. For me, I tend to be on the analytical side. I like to know not just, use a dantian and that's it, but how do you feel a dantian? How does it relate to other parts? How can you define it better? Not just in words, but in your experience. Experimentation is that time when we hear these ideas, or maybe we come up with new ideas, and we put them to the test. This does require feedback from a teacher, but at a certain point, you gotta rely on yourself and feel things out. Sometimes there is this anxiety of, if the teacher doesn't tell you to do something, don't do it. Just do the same thing you've been doing over and over again. But there's this cliche statement that to do the same thing over and over again, expect different results, is kind of madness. But I think it's something that is really easy to get stuck on. Of course, you want to protect yourself from being injured. But in my opinion, if your experimentation isn't safe, and you can't get that safety or the instructions or whatever to practice safely from your teachers, then something's wrong. Especially when it comes to the legs. The knees can be a pain point for a lot of Tai Chi. And if you feel like you can't experiment because you're afraid to get hurt, then something's wrong. I think experimentation is a really good way to just internalize these arts, quote unquote. Experimentation isn't always pretty. It can look very sloppy, jittery. But those are all aspects of our practice that we will keep working on. And if you don't experiment and get a little jittery, well, you're never going to get farther. There comes a point when you experiment and you recognize that jitteriness, and you learn to work on that too. You learn to experiment with that. See, where does that come from? What can you do about it? Is it to do with your thinking? Something with your posture? Breathing even? How can breathing help with that? We experiment with these things to improve them. Instead of relying on the teacher to correct us on every little point until they say after 20 years that, you can learn push hands now. That's to me, that's unacceptable. Don't be afraid to experiment. It's really fun, and I think it's a great way to make the practice your own.